KO mentioned that he and I kind of came up with this at a conference a couple years ago, and we thought about doing something like this as an actual in-person conference, but this turned out, I think, to be a really good, easy way for us to all get together and enjoy all these different schools of thought. So just a little housekeeping reminder, the questions will be done with the chat box. And if you're not Roy or myself, please mute during this next session so we don't have the noise. Okay, so our next presenter is Roy Poper. Roy is the Associate Professor of Trumpet at the Oberlin Conservatory of Music and the author of the book, Commentaries on the Brass Wind Methods of James Stamp, a companionship to the Stamp methods or warm-up studies. Roy studied and worked with Jimmy Stamp for 17 years, and he's here today to enlighten us on the teachings of James Stamp. So, Roy, take it away.
Thank you, Mike. And I just want to at first say it's a privilege to get to present some of the James Stamp ideas for everyone here, and it's a great idea. I mean, with I'm doing at Oberlin, like many of you probably, a lot of virtual teaching right now. It's a double-edged sword. I mean, it's a terrible format, sounds awful, but you can still help your students on FaceTime and Zoom and Google Duo and these various platforms. So we're doing the best we can for as long as this this pandemic stuff lasts. I could give you a little history first, since we have enough time, about my association with James Stamp. First of all, I see Jeffrey. How are you doing? I want to say hi to Jeff Pirtle. And is that you, Mark Bedell? How come your name is Kimberly on my screen?
My alter ego.
Okay. Hello,
Hey.
Mark and I are old friends. And I see Mr. Everson. Hey, Terry. Just a few people in front of me here that I know. I want to say hi to everyone. I had a long history with Jimmy Stamp. I think I can safely say that I owed my ability to have a career to someone like that, and I'm sure that those of you that had great teachers feel the same way. Had great teachers and careers playing the trumpet would feel the same way about the teachers that they felt brought them along to the level where they could be competitive in the professional music world. And I certainly had that from Jimmy Stamp. I'll give you a little bit of history about him if you don't know too much about him. He was born in 1904 in Canada, passed in 1985, December of 1985, just a couple of days before his 82nd birthday. He was, I think he started in Minneapolis Symphony as a very young guy, maybe 1928. He had 17 or 18 years there, at which time he wasn't a young guy. I mean, he was probably 40, early mid 40s, decided to move to Hollywood. I think he had film composer Johnny Green as someone who would hire him for movies, and the Hollywood Bowl Symphony. So he packed up his family and moved to Hollywood without any promise of too much work. So he really took a risk in his when he was middle-aged, and was very successful. Became the first trumpet player at Disney Studios. So if you watch the old nature films, those were all Jimmy Stamp. Early television, Highway Patrol, those old shows, black and white shows on TV. He did a lot of early TV shows, and he was. I should just interject right now that I'm looking at a few notes here that I made. I just don't want to forget anything. If you get a chance, go to YouTube and look at the Tom Stevens Chosen Vale Schlossberg. If you just type in those words, Tom Stevens, Stevens, Chosen Vale Schlossberg, you will see about a 56-minute YouTube lecture, live lecture by Tom, where he talks about some important teachers in America. Jimmy Stamp, William Vacchiano. Who's the other one? There's three. I think of it in a minute, but as being extremely important, and of course he gave a lot of credit to Stamp.
I think the third one was George Messier, right?
Maybe so. I
Yeah,
can't recall, but
I watched that video not too long ago.
watch it.
Yeah,
Okay,
good
but
video.
anyway, it's an excellent video. And one of the things that's in the video that I think is particularly interesting, I don't know where he got it, but he has a letter from Eugene Ormandy, the famous conductor that was in Philadelphia for all those years, who started in Minneapolis. Okay, so he was Jimmy Stamp's conductor, and Ormandy said wrote a letter that said to Schlossberg, and it says, I've got this new young first trumpet player. He's real talented, but he doesn't know anything. He really needs. I really want to send him to New York for lessons. Can you take him? Can you take him for lessons in the summer? In those days, they didn't play through the summer. They all did something else. You know, I'm sure you've seen ITG. They showed in the 1940s. They showed pictures of members of the Cleveland Orchestra trumpet section. They worked as roofers in the summertime. This is before summer festivals. So I don't know what the guys were doing in Minneapolis, but they were off in the summer. They probably all had different jobs. So he would go to study with Schlossberg in New York, and then he would stop by and see his old buddy Vincent Bach, and he would pick out Bach trumpets for his trumpet students. In those days, that's before Mount Vernon, so it was like first generation Bach trumpets, and then he would sell those horns to his students the following fall, and teach his trumpet students. But Jimmy Stamp told me that Schlossberg was an extremely patient teacher. He said he was so patient, and Stamp himself was a very patient teacher. I can only remember getting talked to in a sharp way maybe twice in the whole time. I was first place. I was just a kid, and I started with him when I was 15 years old. So I was afraid to do anything that he didn't. You know, I was a good student. I did everything he told me. He mostly taught professional players. I'm sure Mark will remember this. Most of his students were professional trumpet players, and there was always a long line waiting to study with him. So I kept my slot with him like a rent-controlled apartment in New York. I mean, I never. He would call me once in a while. This is when I was in my 20s, and he'd say, "Hey, Roy, geez, I've got a guy coming from Sweden. He's going to be here for a couple of weeks. You think you don't need a lesson for the next 2 weeks, do you? Can you do without a lesson?" I say, "Okay, but I want it back by this date. You know, I want my lesson." It was the cheapest insurance you could possibly get. You know, I had somebody the likes of him looking at my playing and checking me out, make sure I was on the right track every week for a nominal amount of money. I mean, it was a fantastic check-in, and I anything I couldn't do, I could take right to him, and he would show me how to play it better. And so I think many of us had those experiences with Stamp. So that's how he progressed with Schlossberg, and I do encourage you to look at that Chosen Vale YouTube. It's really eye-opening. People that are unfamiliar with the Stamp ideas, usually if you ask them, "What's it all about?" they usually say, "Well, isn't it about mouthpiece buzzing?" And then that opens the whole can of worms about whether or not that's a good idea, right? And Stamp was a believer in using the mouthpiece to help you. And I can just give you my opinion about what he was talking about with mouthpiece buzzing. And I say my opinion because this old guy did not use that many. Um, he was. It was almost like studying with a healer. I mean, he could walk up to you and put his hand on the side of your head, lift your bell a little. All of a sudden, you start playing better and not know why. You know. So, but if your body was out of balance, or if you were taking a breath with the pressure on too soon, he'd catch it immediately and stop and correct you, show you what to do instead. But he did not say a lot of words unless you ask questions with words. So I was usually running my mouth and asking him a lot of questions because I needed the help. And so um, I think that if I start with the idea of using the mouthpiece, if you know the notes, you know, his little pattern, forgive me, this is a horrible format. Everybody knows that if they know this, if they have a stamp book or if they've heard it in the practice rooms or whatever. Therein is the first thing to pay attention to if you want to know something about stamp, because many times people that don't like mouthpiece buzzing, if they go see somebody that's a stamp student, will find out that their lips are too tight to begin with. Okay, so if you're interested in it and you get a book and you try to start on the mouthpiece, and this is what you get if. In other words, a one-to-one relationship. I buzzed the same. I buzzed on the mouthpiece, pulled it off, and I followed with the same pitch on my lips. Lips are about twice too tight. Okay. You may not blame it for that, but actually, if you follow through with that lip tension, you're going to find yourself in a fair amount of misery on the trumpet, and you'll hear it right away if you do the converse. Watch this. Oh, this is really awful. I got to find a place here. That's a one-to-one relationship. And as one detractor once said, "Who wants to sound like that?" And I agree. No good. So what to do instead? You know, we've all had students like this and do that way ourselves, where we get started. We all want security when we play. If we get started with a little extra tension, a little extra lip tension, sometimes the old man used to say, nobody ever blames the middle register for anything. And a lot of times the middle register is the culprit. You know, if we're a little bit too tight in the middle register, Mark's shaking his head, me too. If we're a little too tight in the middle register, it makes it difficult to go in either direction, even though in the middle register you might get away with it. Okay, so I tell my students, see if you can vibrate an octave lower from the low C. If I start my low C here, that's a pedal C. That's a pedal C on a B flat trumpet. Would the converse be true? And if the answer is yes, you got to have your tongue out of the way to do this, by the way. The tip of your tongue should be out of the way, maybe lightly behind your lower teeth or something like that. See? Okay. That would get you off to a pretty good start. Not that that's such a great sound, but it's better than the other one, right? My lips aren't too tight. Yeah, you just have to take my word for it. Okay, so that should help people that are investigating stamp and playing on the mouthpiece. I know the Atom people will use part of a lead pipe. They use a receiver and a little bit of tubing, and that's That's just, and that's actually quite, that's a good idea too. It makes you, all of a sudden you're playing a little trumpet then, you know, you get the effect of a little more tubing to blow through, and I think that's a great idea as well. I think it should be said at one point or another that I mean, we have me with representing Stamp. We have, you just heard Carl Sievers with Atom Ideas. Jeffrey will do will do Claude's ideas. Paco tomorrow with El Sistema. Mr. Rocco with the Chicago and the Jacobs ideas, and Mr. McNeil with Caruso. I can't help, these are all fantastic people, fantastic musical ideas. It's a wealth of information. And I feel like nobody knows everything, that all of us, if you think of the totality of playing music and playing your instrument well, if you think of it like links in a chain, none of us have all the links connected. You know, we aspire to guys like Maurice Andre and Hakan Hardenberger and our heroes who have more links connected than we do. But none of us knows everything. And I'll tell you something. When I go to the ITGs, I go to see all the master classes. Some of the master classes I think are ridiculous. I go anyway. I just go anyway. And I've never been to one of those things, but what I got something out of it, something that I didn't know before I end up knowing. Something helps my playing that I did not know before. So it's really, really great to have an open mind and to take in what there is to learn in this world. This is not a, you know, when I go on vacation, the trumpet comes with me. I'm going to play a couple hours a day on a vacation. My wife's a professional violist. The viola never goes. The viola's never in the car. You know, she takes 2 weeks off. She takes 2 weeks off. You know, when we were in the opera together, she'd say, "Why do you always bring your trumpet?" I had a place up in Mammoth, California. She said, "What do you bring your trumpet for?" You know, or I said, I got to play a couple hours a day. Why? Well, when we go back to the opera, I have to sound good the first day. You have 12 other people on your part. If your finger's not in the right place or your calluses aren't good, nobody knows, trust me. But at a piano, when we miss something, everybody knows. So no, I'm sorry, I have to practice a little bit, you know. So anyway, yeah, trumpet is a non-forgiving, high maintenance instrument, you know. I don't think I'm going to ever play it just for fun. When I'm done, I'm going to be done. But I'm still interested in it, and I'm still trying to learn to play better. So anyway, I'm not trying to sell books, but I did write a book. It's just this is a Trumpet Poper's Guide about the brass wind methods of Stamp, and I wrote it because after he passed, people called me from all over the world that knew I knew him and had studied with him and said, "Hey, I'm playing out of the Stamp book and I'm getting better, but I don't know why." And I'm like, "Good, getting better, yeah, but I want to know what to do." So I tried to write the book is like an addendum, you know, to try to explain the ideas, and once you understand them, it goes up on the shelf and you can always refer to it later if you find a use for it. So that was the reason. It was to help people understand how to use the Stamp book. There's also a good one by a guy named Jean-Christophe Wiener, who's passed away a few years ago, and that's published by BIM, and it's how to use this. I think it's called How to Use the Stamp book. He was a very dear friend of mine and wrote a good volume on it. French from Paris. Yeah, so Lips Too Tight is a good one. I'll tell you another thing I think is real important about the Stamp idea. I've got my Stamp book here where I can reach it. Number 3, which is the famous, you know, the famous notes, you know, it's the ones that everybody associates with Stamp. Everybody knows that if you've ever been around anybody that's practiced Stamp. I think it's interesting. I asked him one time where it came from, and he said, well, you know, like I said, I was 15, so I was doing lots of stuff wrong. And he used to say it's a treatment of the Schlossberg idea. If you look at Schlossberg on page number 13, which is on my edition, is page 4, number 13. And it's the famous one. We all know it. And all that stuff, right? We all know that from Schlossberg. The student mistake with that, those of you that teach know this, the student mistake is this. Listen. They let the airspeed down, they let go here, and the pitch gets telegraphed a little bit before the next note comes, and it's a little bit out of tune all the way down, and it's an incorrect production habit, right? That's all it is. And so he used to say, everybody knows when you're in a car and you go uphill, everybody knows to step on the gas, but when you go downhill on the trumpet, you have to step on the gas. He used to tell us that, right? And I bet you remember that, Mark. So he put a couple of whole steps in. I don't know if he did that just for me or if it was something that he just explained to people from time to time, but he took the Schlossberg notes and had put those extra notes in, and that's where it came from. Okay, so it was a very clever way of solving the problem of telegraphing the direction of the slur as you headed down, and that was a big help for me. If you want me to stop for a minute and answer some questions, if there are any questions at this moment, I will entertain some questions. If not, I'll keep going. I don't see anything in the chat box here, so I'll assume it's okay. All right, I'll continue. The next thing I think that might be important now, and I must preface this idea with saying he never said this out loud to me, but it's something I believe that I learned from studying with him. And that's this, on many of us, I mean, there are many different ways to approach the trumpet, and some of them are at odds with one another a little bit, you know, which is just fine. But I think most of us would agree that to play the entire instrument on one embouchure, we're better off than if we have to reset from place to place, right? I know when I was tell you a quick story. When I was first starting, well, when I was in my early 20s and a young professional trumpet player, I let my corners open as I descended, and I would have to reset going back up, you know. And the incentive, I had no incentive to change that because it sounded pretty good. Although Mark Bedell will tell you that my low register was not consistent. His was. he had an iron-fisted lower register that I only could admire, you know. But mine was not that consistent. I had no incentive to change anything because my upper register was really good, and so I didn't think I needed to do anything differently. And I was wrong, you know. Whoops, getting a thing here.
We are getting a couple of questions here. Somebody wants to know what can you explain the concept of think down as you go up and up as you go down?
Yeah, I'm getting some interference here. Just a second. I will explain it. Yeah, that's another big one. But let me just say this one thing first, okay? I'll cover that, and I'm happy to. Where do you guys? Oh, there we are. Now we're back again. I just want to cover this one idea first. if we can play the horn on one embouchure, we're better off. Okay, so if you take if you learn to play the pedal tone, and then connect without changing your embouchure, connect it to the first note that's on the horn again, which in this case it'll be the low A, because my pedal tone is the F, and then I'm going to connect it to the low A. You can play the entire rest of the horn without a change, you know. And if you can do that, you can connect your lower register to your upper register. It makes contemporary music with big intervallic leaps a hell of a lot easier, you know. So that he was constantly teaching us to do that correctly without ever saying those words that I just expressed to you. Okay, so I just wanted to cover that. And so the one thing was stay down to go up and stay up to go down. Yeah, and he used to say doing that keeps the notes in their proper place. Well, and it goes back to telegraphing the direction of the slur before you go. So if I here's a classic, you know, the foundation of all flexibility, you know, Schlossberg page or yeah, which one? Schlossberg number 7, which is on page 2. We all do this one. How many of you done that? We've all done it, right? So he would tell us to keep the position of the upper note and vocalize the note below and keep the air moving. Every one of you that teaches tells your students something like that in your own words in order to get them to blow straight through that figure. I think that was not easy for me to learn. You know, I think I tried to time it to go to the next note. When I review my crimes of my youth in learning to play the trumpet, that was one of them. You know, and then when you would take, say, number 8 in Schlossberg, if I tip the air in the direction of the slur, I'm pulling myself out of the center of the note. So he would say, stay down and vocalize the next note. When I do that, I feel like I'm blowing from here, like I'm blowing through a straw, you know? And then my lips just feel like they're just part of the straw that carries the air. They're not my lips. The problem is the only place you feel anything is here. So the message to your brain is the lips are important. The lips are so important. The lips are important. It's the least important thing that we do. But that's where you feel something is in the lips. So the message is you got to be doing something with your lips all the time. We've got to get past that and get the focus on our air and our airspeed and the position to be in to succeed. So I think in a few words, I hope that explains stay down to go up and stay up to go down. Like if you know, like the Copeland. You can't do that any other way but correctly. If I go, it's over. See, there's a severe example of doing it wrong. So if I stay down, I have more success. And there's a classic example of staying down to go up and staying up to go down. I hope that answers that issue with the person that asked that. Here's another thing in the chat here.
Next question was, do you play the pedal C open?
I don't. I mean, I can, but I envy some of my students. Some of my students can play the pedal C open and move on it. I can't. I play the pedal C with all three, and then I can move. But I know Malcolm McNabb. He's as clever as a monkey on that stuff. He can play open pedal C and go any place. I've never had any luck with that. I need the resistance of that pedal, and then I can move. You don't make any money doing that, let me tell you. But it's an indication of your production habits, right? If I can do that, I'm in a good position all over the horn. Again, it's one embouchure. Does that answer that question sufficiently?
I hope so.
so.
Okay. What does mouthpiece buzzing accomplish for you? Does it diminish resistance, or does the diminished resistance accomplish something in particular?
I think I don't quite understand the question, but I will say that I think that mouthpiece buzzing for me gets me to get a more complete vibration sooner. You know, if there was only one way to do everything, there'd just be the patter of little feet up only one hallway. But some people get a good benefit from. They'll flutter tongue some things and feel like they get a more complete vibration. Those of us that studied with Stamper thought that was important. Feel that that if we buzz we buzz the scales, we get to a more lively vibration and a full vibration by doing that. I'll tell you something else that I think is important about Stamp that doesn't get mentioned too often. He insisted on, and I know Mark will know this. Sometimes you take a lesson and he would play the piano while you played the mouthpiece. He would do the scale. He would play the scale for you, and you would play the mouthpiece. He wouldn't let you play out of tune. He would not let you get out of the center of any note. And I can remember leaving when I was, especially when I was just a kid, 15, 16, 17. I remember being kept at the piano for the entire hour. I never got to the trumpet. And I'd say, please, I've got a whole list of things I want to do for you here. He'd say, yeah, you don't play your scales in tune. We're not going anywhere until you do that. You know, and he was like a dog with a bone about that. He would not let you anywhere near the trumpet until your scales were center to center to center to center. And pretty soon, you know, you would relax and play into the center of the notes, and the vibration would start to come. And then he'd say, okay, get your horn. And then you'd be on your horn, or maybe just work on your scales this week. Another thing he would do is he would play the note on the like a B flat concert on the piano, and then he would have you follow him, right? I'm going to do it really fast. You'll be able to hear it, and I'll be right back. So you hear that? Constantly measuring ourselves against the fixed pitch of a piano. See? And if your ear was not right and you weren't delivering your air where your ear told you to be, you would be out of tune with the note. And he would lead you, and then he'd have you do it again until you were hearing it and blowing for it, right? that turns out to be an extremely important, because we all know that if we hear what we want to play, and then we command it with our ear and our air, we have a much better result than if we just play and let the thing, try to get the trumpet to do something for us without insisting of blowing for it. Blowing for it is everything once you hear it correctly. So I thought that was a big idea of his that I ended up getting a good benefit from. Is there any other questions?
Can you explain the scale velocity studies?
Oh, sure. The scale patterns. Is that what it is?
I guess so. It says, can you explain scale velocity studies?
Right. I try to. Yeah, if it's this one. Oh no, maybe it's the stuff in the back. Oh, scale velocity. Okay, I found it. Yeah, in this book it's page 25, and the new one it's another page. But yeah, it's one of them's diatonic and one of them's chromatic. Okay, this is the chromatic one. All it is playing some short notes like bum bum da 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 bum bum yada da 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 da, and he would you play it as printed, and then it's not, in this book it's not explained very well, but when you get to the second line, yada da 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 da, it's play it 2 times slurred, 2 times double tongue, going from a double tongue to a slur, and then a slur to a single tongue. So you learn to slow down your double tongue and speed up your single tongue, because we all know that the people that we work for, the conductors, will find the crack where you can't navigate because your single tongue is too slow and your double tongue is not slow enough. So it's one of the exercises that helps to bridge that gap. A lot of people have written good ones. This is just, and then on the next page it has it diatonic. You just do it in scales. That's the explanation that I have that I would give you for that.
Next question,
Yeah.
Is there a daily stamp routine?
I'll tell you the one I believe in. Everybody's got their own, but I'll tell you mine. I do the mouthpiece warm up. There's several different editions of this book, right? So I used to try to track my book, track the editions. It's too hard to do, so I speak of it by icon now. So I start with the mouthpiece alone. That's the mouthpiece scales, and then the basic warm up on the mouthpiece. Okay, and then after that I get on the trumpet, and I like to do, instead of number 3, I like to do the alternative warm up 2, which is called 3B, because it has the 6th in it. It has C E G A, and that note kind of helps make a nice bridge. So I do that one, 3B alternative warm up 2, and then once I've done that, the next thing I do is some kind of rapid articulation. I'll do the stamp book uses the staccato control at the back of the book. This book says page 29. That one leads, it's rapid single tonguing, which leads to, is 3 little exercises. They lead to broken chord articulation. You can find it in Schlossberg if you, number 80, for instance, in Schlossberg, broken chord articulation. This is what this is for. And then after I do some kind of, this is categorical. You can do the Gecker. Yada da 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 da. You can do the Gecker instead, you know. But I like to slur it and then tongue it. Clark too. Da 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 da. 4 notes slurred, 4 notes tongue. Da da dee da 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 da. You know, or 4 notes slurred, 4 notes double tongue, 4 notes single tongue. Ya da 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 da, and so forth. It's a category, and then from there, once you do a good rapid articulation study, then like limber up with a flexibility study, right? And that flexibility, he was crazy about Earl Irons. He thought Earl Irons was a fantastic book, and so he wrote a treatment. The supplementary study in the stamp book is a treatment of the Earl Irons. The first couple of bars are stamped, is like a setup drill, and then if you'll look at them, the rest of them is Earl Irons. You can't copyright broken chord articulations. You can't copy, you know. So there's no stealing involved. We can all do flexibilities any way we want to in any order we want to without breaking any copyright rules. But he was very, very complimentary of Earl Irons. So his supplementary study is a treatment of the Earl Irons. The whole Earl Irons book on one page. That's what it is. Okay, so then of course, you know, every good trumpet player should do scales every day. If you don't, you're a bad boy or girl. So the stamp scales, scale patterns, which is called number 6 in the stamp book, I think is very clever, because when I first started as a kid, I remember the very first lesson I had. It was humiliating. He said, okay, play me. Let's play a couple of scales. Play me an A major scale starting on D, and I couldn't do it. You know, 15 years old. I know I had to start on A. You know, start on D. No, I couldn't play it on D. Okay, let's play a chromatic scale starting on D sharp. No, I couldn't do it. He says, so tell me, when you play a scale, you always start on the keynote. Is that right? Yes. When you play a chromatic scale, you've only ever started on C or low F sharp. Am I right? Right. Yeah. He said, yeah, you need to be able to start on any note and play the scale on any note and play the chromatic scale. And so this little scale patterns drill, he would, it starts on a G and it's in the key of C, right? We never started on the keynote ever. So he'd say, okay, today we're going to be in the key of B major. Well, you see, we're starting up here on a G sharp. So we're in the key of B major. You have to know there's 5 sharps, or you can't play the scale. You have to know your key signature, or you can't play the scale. So it leads you to learn what every scale that you have to play, to know your accidentals. So that's how I learned my scales, and then he would have us go from there to natural minors and harmonic minors. You can't do a melodic minor with the scale patterns because it goes back and forth between 6 and 7 too much, and you never know where you are. So you can do harmonic minors and you can do natural minors, or you can do majors with number 6. And so that's a basic categorical warm up and I think there are 2 ways to do this kind of warm up. You do it to acquire skills you don't have. And in that case, that warm-up is going to take you an hour and a half, because you're acquiring skills that you don't possess. If you're doing it just to get limbered up and warmed up for a day's work, you do it. You're on your mouthpiece 5-6 minutes, and you're warmed up in 20, 25, 30 minutes. And so that's kind of like an overview of the stamp philosophies, if you will. Do you have a couple more?
Can you explain the stamp note bending exercises?
Oh, the bending.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty prescriptive about that. And I think he's right. What he used to say was, where's my trumpet? Here we go. There's 2 ways to bend a note, and one of them gets you in nothing but trouble. When I was first studying with him, he was having the professional players that he's taught do a bending exercise that went about like this. Mark, I don't know if you remember this. Maybe you remember this. All the way down to pedal C. Did you ever do that, Mark? Okay. Anyway, and then he'd end up on pedal C and then go back up to high C. Everybody else got better and I got worse, you know? And finally, we figured out that the way that I was making my bend was I was allowing my airspeed to fall until the note would fall a half step. Well, then guess what? The lip opens up, and so your lips get further and further apart. It takes a hurricane to get anything happening at that point, and you end up way too open for everything. So he would make sure that we were. If you think of the air like a string or a rubber band that's pulled tight, he would push the air. That's representing the air column. You would push the air column down and have it spring back up. And when you succeed, the note you return to should sound better than the note you left. So this would be the wrong one. It doesn't sound that bad. That's why you can get into trouble with it, you know. This is the correct one. You see what I'm saying? So that's in a nutshell. And then he would always put a diminished chord with it because he thought most of us didn't know our diminished chord. So guess what? You know, there was a diminished chord added on to the end of it. So then he would send you to the back of the Clark, technical studies book if you didn't know your diminished chords. You know, so he was very clever. You know, the bottom line is with all of these great teachers, Stamp, Adam, Gordon. Part of the success of what they taught, it has to do with the talent of the teacher, you know, and those of us that studied with people that we respected, that really gave us the tools that we needed to make a living, those of us that learned those lessons from the talented teacher and practicing their principles could pass those things along and add to them so that we make good trumpet playing and good musicianship easier for the next guy, for the next generation, right? And so I have respect for all of it. Anyway, that's about what I have. Yeah.
Next question is how do you achieve the proper lip tension without using too much air and overblowing? How do you prevent that?
Say it again.
Okay. How do you achieve the proper lip tension without using too much air and overblowing?
Okay, well, if you can buy into the idea, that on the mouthpiece, a one-to-one relationship is way too tight. If you can practice that idea like that, your lip tension should be good. That should answer that question. Am I wrong?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
What led you to go study with James Stamp?
Oh, well, my best friend in high school, a young man named Louis Voiles. Louis's mother was Madeline, was a cello teacher, and in L.A. in those days, in the 1965 or 4, the Glendale Symphony, which was the next suburb north of L.A. The Glendale Symphony was a symphony populated by studio players who wanted to play real music. They wanted to play at concerts, great literature, and so they would hire whoever the Philharmonic's guest conductor was. they would try to hire him for an extra week to have them play great literature. Okay, Stamp played in that orchestra. Madeline Voiles, Louis's mother, played in that orchestra. He was a trumpet player. We were in school together, and she came home one day before she taught her cello lessons, and she said, "You boys should call this guy Jimmy Stamp. He plays in this orchestra, Glendale Symphony, and he's retiring from it. He's not going to play in it anymore, which means he's going to have a few more hours open for teaching. Everybody wants to study with this guy. Call him right away." I called him immediately, and and he, he was a little bit amused because we were only 15 years old, but he said, "Okay, you boys come up," and he started to, he took us on as students, and I became a professional trumpet player, and Louis became a forecast analyst for Hunt Wesson Foods. I asked him what he did I said, "What do you do, Lou?" He goes, "I don't know. It's hard to explain. I move big blocks of money from here to here." So he didn't stick with the trumpet, but I was hard-headed, and I stuck with it. That's how I started with Jimmy Stamp. I heard about him. I didn't know anything about him, and I started on that basis, and I'd had enough other teachers. My first teacher was my father, who had a dance band before he became an architect. He became an architect on the GI Bill after World War II, when the dance business was no more. And then I had my next teacher, like almost anybody my age. My next teacher had been a cornet player, and so almost all of us in my age group were taught at least once by a cornet player, and when he passed away, and he had been, one of the cornet soloists with Herbert L. Clark. My father studied with Clark. And so he got me a good embouchure, got started well. And then I heard about this guy Stamp after Floyd Hoose died. And I got better every single week if I did what he said. So I just kept doing what he said. and it was, it bought me a chance to have a career. So that's how I found out about it. I did not read about it or know. I was just lucky. If not for Madeline Voiles, I don't know what I'd be doing. Probably marine biology, because I'm crazy about water.
So in your own studio at the conservatory, do your students all have a daily routine, or is it prescribed for each student based on their needs?
No, I teach I want my students, like was done for me. I want my students to touch the same notes in the same order every day, so that they have an established routine that's categorical, from which they can deviate whenever they want to. Once they learn to do a routine that is healthy for them to do. The stuff I outlined in this for you a few minutes ago is the order that I have them do their warm up. And Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 a.m. I have a class. They don't have to do it, but the ones that are smart come to it, and they learn to do this stuff correctly. And I noticed that if the students will do that, they progress a lot faster than if they don't. We're not running a prison here. You don't have to do it. But if they're smart, and if a student has something that's working for him, I do not get in the way of it. I think, good for you. I try to learn from him, because we don't everybody know everything.
Okay, well, we've got three more questions for you. This one is, did you work with Tom Stevens when you were in LA? And if so, what did you learn from him?
I worked with him a lot. He used to moonlight every once in a while and do motion pictures, and so I worked with him on quite a few movies. I worked with him on movies when he didn't get to play first trumpet too, which was kind of interesting, because he didn't like that much. But none of us play first trumpet all the time, so he had to do like everybody else. But I think we always had a great example in Stevens. I remember I took a big audition one time, and Stamp wouldn't teach me excerpts. He said, no, my concept is way too dated. Go see Tom. Tom's doing it every day. And so I called him and asked for some excerpt lessons, and he hated teaching. He said, no. Won't Stamp do it? And I said, no. He wanted me to call you. And he said, oh, no, I don't like it. But he said, I'll tell you what, here's what you do. He said, play your excerpts just like you were going to play them for George Zell. And I said, how is that? And he said, perfect rhythm, perfect pitch, perfect articulation, and perfect phrasing. If you do that, you'll be fine. I guess so, you know? So I did find some people, but I took that to heart, and I made the finals in some pretty good auditions. So yeah, I have to say he was not a and I played with him at the Hollywood Bowl an awful lot because I sub with the Philharmonic frequently, and he was an extremely good example of someone who followed his own rules. He was great at following a conductor. He knew when to take charge himself and when not to. I remember on a Webern piece one time, I was insecure because I wasn't playing with them all the time, and it was kind of a fussy little thing. And I said, Tom, tell me if I'm not right with you. He said, if Zubin doesn't like it, he'll tell you. Zubin made it. So he was a little bit Darwinian, I'd say, but he was a great example all the time. We all played better because Tom Stevens was in LA. We all played better. We all got better because of him, because he was such a great example day in, day out, week in, week out. And so I must say I learned a lot from being around him.
And we're going to ask you the same question, the last two questions that we asked Carl, and that is, can you remember one great moment from a lesson with James Stamp, and what was something in a performance that you had in the past that stands out as something that was really great for you?
Well, I had great lessons all the time with Stamp. I mean, it's hard to single one out. I will tell you one thing though. Whenever you did, he had this, and Mark will remember this. He had this inside this piano bench in his piano. There was a bench that had a you could put music inside the bench, right? With a hinge on it. And every time you got something right, like it was really right, and you had this aha moment, like I did it right, he would have this. He would open up the bench and he'd take out this picture of a Weimaraner dog. That the dog would look like, yeah, I got it, you know. And he would show you the picture of the dog. It was really corny, but it was just so funny, you know. I remember the dog very, very well. And what was the other question?
A performance that stands out in your memory is something that you are very proud of, or was a moment of greatness.
It's more of a general thing. I mean, I was first call for almost all the LA Bach festivals, B minor mass. I did the Brandenburg every year with LA Chamber Orchestra for 13 years. I did the second Brandenburg for 6 nights in a row, and it was actually, I can almost say, well, the first night's never easy, but after the first night, if you play it well, you're just happy you played it well. But then the other 5 nights were positively easy, and all because of the James Stamp approach. I think that was a big deal for me to have that as an accomplishment. Also, I remember playing first trumpet in the LA Opera. We did Salome quite a bit, and from Salome's dance to the end, you better know what you're doing. You end up with a big deal at the very end, and I was every time I got up to the high E flat or something like that at the end of Salome, right before the last few chords, I would just say, "Thank God for Jimmy Stamp. It's just not that hard to do if you know what to do." So I mean, like I said, I owe the ability that I've had to make a career because of him, and so I'll always be grateful for that. I have his trumpet. A few years ago, I was at home. I was in LA, and I went to see his granddaughters. Everybody else has passed, and I took his trumpet, and we all stood around and took pictures of the girls holding their grandfather's trumpet, and that was kind of fun, yeah.
Well,
Great
Roy,
horn.
we appreciate greatly your taking the time to share your teaching experience and your experience with James Stamp with us. And